Radio Ansaar podcasts.
It's called our silly season. We don't know, there are lots of youth that are out there, probably innocently looking forward to the holidays, and a lot of people want to go. Obviously, with COVID, there are some heavy. Let's hope there's no serious lockdown and restrictions. But you can, if we are planning anything, and we all have good intentions, everybody wants to have a good time. But we need to introspect before we go into anything, because that once-off good time can change your life forever. And that's what we're going to talk about this silly season today. I have Zain Ghani and I have Zain Kara. Alhamdulillah, the two Zains are here with me, alhamdulillah. They're obviously going to be joining me on this program. And we will talk a little bit about what this silly season thing is all about, and how important it is for us to educate our youth, especially those that are in school, those that have finished writing the matric examination, those that are going to high school, the potential or the chances of them messing up their lives. And I'm sure we all innocently look forward to having a successful future, but then just that one holiday that can trigger a major problem in our lives. So we're going to talk about that, and I hope there are many youth that are listening to this program, so that you can take guidance from whatever we have to offer you this afternoon, of course. All right, if we open the lines immediately, it's 0861 904 904. Let's open the lines and let's get some participation from the listeners. 0861 904 904, or you can WhatsApp us on 060 904 1056. WhatsApp 060 904 1056. Maybe I shouldn't give the WhatsApp number because they prefer to WhatsApp, they don't call. I like the calls. The calls are better. What do you think, Zay?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. We expect people to physically get involved with us.
We want input. Let's have some participation. Let's run a support group through the radio, inshallah, today.
Inshallah.
Okay, Zain, Assalamu alaikum. How are you, Zain?
Assalamu wa rahmatullah. This time of the year, throughout the year, everybody has a stressful year. But when we get to this part of the year, when it comes to recovery, it's the hardest time for any recovery is going through silly season. This is the time when all the socializing starts to take place, all the temptation, you are bombarded left, right and center, whether it's media, whether it's social media, anybody you talk to, it's always their plans for the December. And what happens at this point is that we become very careless about our responsibilities, especially with regards to recovery, and the lack of common sense kicks in. And there's always that saying that it's the moment common sense goes out the window, you become so volatile that one mistake, just one small mistake, could ruin your whole life. This is where we are.
Zain, for this, what you are saying is so important. I know of cases. I know of a case where they had written the matric examination and they all decided to go for a break. In the class of that year, the entire class of friends decided to go for a break, and they booked into a chalet, and this one youngster brought in a little thing and he shoved it under everybody's tongue. They didn't know what it was. They were innocent. And of course, it led to permanent damage with one of those youngsters. He's gone, he's messed up for life. He's now become psychotic. So the thing is, all it takes, and it was ignorance, this not empowered, not understanding the problem very innocently, but it has cost somebody their entire future. It has messed up not only the person, the individual, his entire family is now sitting with the problem, because this guy loses it every now and again. He becomes psychotic for no apparent reason. It's because if you take drugs like acid, then it will do that. You go on your trips from time to time. Correct. He was one of the unfortunate people, but tomorrow it could be somebody, one of our children, somebody else's child. And we need to understand that we need to prepare the youth looking at this silly season to understand that please, to our youth, the silly season will kick off with step 1 or stage 1 to addiction, and that is experimentation. Experimentation is the key. We want to try it out. We have worked hard the entire year. It was a stressful year. We had a very difficult year. We had to go through COVID, finish our matric, or the entire year, whatever grade we may be. And now there are some of us that are going into high school, and some of us that are going post-matric, and we want to have a good time.
But this is the thing, Uncle Ibi, when you hear the stories, the guys that come through, and even my own personal life story, that's exactly how it started.
Exactly.
It started with experimentation, it started with friends, it started in this particular period as well.
Yes, so let's dedicate this discussion to those that want to experiment, because we already talk about helping those that are affected. Let's talk about those that are going to be potential addicts, that are going to experiment, and they're going to throw their lives away. And all it took was when you made that decision to experiment and see, just for the fun of it.
100%.
Just let me try it out. Maybe you can share a little bit of your experience. But before I go to you, Zain, Kara, let me go to Gani. We got two Zains. One is Kara, one is Gani. Gani, you tell me about your life. Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Alhamdulillah. It's good to be here for a silly season, actually, part of R.A.U.F. Just pondering about my life, and during my schooling career, silly season is actually experiment season, right? And now that, like Kara was saying, this is now challenge season, because automatically right now, just driving through the roads and all, the vibe is different. Everyone's in holiday mode.
You can feel it.
You can feel it. You feel it's in the air. Now there's adverts of everything, adverts of alcohol, adverts of clubs. There's even live shows that are even opening up, right, which are encouraging alcohol, people coming together and all of those things. So that brings me back to what I used to do back when I was, just starting my drug use. And I remember influence is a major player, right? But it was up to me. I always knew, I always thought in December, this is when I'm going to do it. This is when I'm going to do it. Obviously, you got free time. You're at home. Your parents are still working for most of the time, and you're still at home. That's the time where, you want to let loose. You want to let loose. You want to try things. And now your friends are around. You even want to try things. I remember even you try things with, boyfriends and girlfriends. They want to try things with each other. And then now they encourage, they hear things, we should do it under the influence. That's when, okay, right, let me do this thing. And that's experiment. And then it's all downhill from there. And now, like for me being here now, like we always say in silly season, we must come to R.A.U.F or get your connection with R.A.U.F because all the challenges are there. Like we were just talking about, the vibe is out. People are in holiday mode, they're in party mode. And even if you keep busy, it's not enough. I would say for myself, it's not enough. You still have to have a connection. You still have to have someone there to tell you, hey, you have to be reminded, because at any time, your guard can fall. Your guard is never up all the time. That's why you always have to be with someone to empower you to say, well, hey, you know what I mean? You need to pull your line back in. And my Decembers were always never at home. I used to save money just for December. People do that.
A lot of people do that. Yes.
They spend all their bonuses during December, and is that really? And then January, everything's back to normal.
And whilst we're all looking at, I like the word reminded, and that's what this program is about, reminding our youth. You can have clean fun. You can have a nice, decent outing with your friends, with your family, and you can enjoy the fruits of December, the lovely coastline that we share, or anywhere in the country, wherever you are. There's beauty everywhere, there's nature, and we can have clean fun.
Yes.
Right? But it is always this time of the year when we want to have, with all the good times that we are having, the highest number of deaths, the highest number of road accidents, the highest number of domestic violence, the highest number of crime, everything just shoots up. It's because it's that time of the year, and we all drop our guards.
Okay.
And this is what we're going to talk about. This is what we need to bring across to the people. Keep a hold, have a grip on yourself. Be focused.
You spoke about having a grip on Klibi. This peer pressure and herd mentality that our youngsters go through. We were proof of it, that we fell for the same loophole. When somebody else is trying, you chose a specific target market that you spoke about, those that can experiment. Because somebody said, don't worry, you felt, okay, if he's doing it, it's okay for me as well. If he can manage it, so can I. So that ego sort of was being stroked between the two. And from one, it became to twice a day, once a week, twice a week, thrice a week. And next thing you know, before you blink your eyes, so many years have passed, you're a full-blown drug addict. And now you don't even have the ambition to change until your life starts to change and crumble in front of you. Then only the penny will drop to say, listen, so many years ago, when I was told, I didn't listen. I didn't understand. But now I had to experience it. So for all those that are out there that are listening, learn from somebody else's mistake. Don't make the same mistakes.
Maybe you can just give us a little bit of your how the silly season has helped mess up your life, and took you down to the bottomless pit.
Uncle Ibi, at this part of the year, like Zain said, you plan for it, especially after when it was in school. After exams, you plan for the getaways, the weekend away with all the friends to de-stress. And initially, generally, it would start with clean fun. You booked a chalet, you're going to the beach, you're going to go camping, or whatever the case may be. And it starts with clean fun. But somewhere along the line, there will be that one influencer that basically brings the idea. It just has to sow that idea. And because it's sparked between so many egos, it overspills. In my particular life, it happened on many occasions. We went out with friends. You stayed out for the weekend. You were responsible for yourself, for your own choices. We made those choices. And when you come back, you benefit nothing from it. Absolutely nothing from it. Besides war stories which you will swap with your friends at a later stage, you benefit nothing from it. A lot of the times, we came back with more problems than we went with. Instead of starting the new year on a more positive note, with a healthier note, with clear goals and visions, whatever happened over the December period, whatever you could have saved for your next year was gone. You blew it up because it was one party that started and just continued throughout the whole of December. It became like that.
Yes, and I know of a case. I remember there was a youngster that was here, and he said that he had his wife had to go overseas, and then he had the money, and then he was at home, and she came back. When his wife came back, there was no home. The house, everything was sold.
Correct.
And he was on the street. He couldn't come back home. But, another case that comes to mind is we had this chap that was clean for 2 years. Mm-hmm. And his wife had put very good controls. She had everything in place. The finances under control, the cell phone under control. She had a very good discipline. The 3 C's, the 3 P's were all in place. And she would only give him 10 Rand a day. That was 5 Rand to take a taxi down the road and 5 Rand to come back. He was working 3 km away from his house. So he would take 5 Rand, pay the taxi driver 5 Rand and drop him off at work. In the evening, he would take another taxi, 5 Rand back home. Everything under control. But what he did, he used to walk back. He'll walk one trip and he'll take the taxi the one trip. So maybe in the morning he'll walk, or in the afternoon he takes a taxi, or vice versa. But he had accumulated those 5 Rands a day. So that was a lot of money. He had accumulated that money for the entire year. He had that money kept at work. And when do you think he relapsed?
In this period.
On the 23rd of December.
Sure.
So, an adult married with children, why did it happen at that time? It's because of the psychological, the peer pressure, all the excitement and all the fun and everybody's in a festive mood and everybody's having a good time. So he chose that moment. And the next day he was back in with us.
Correct.
So even, why didn't he choose to do it any other time? Because festive season is synonymous with silly season.
Yes.
It goes together. To me, they're one and the same. Because like I said, statistically speaking, most of the challenges are during the silly season.
Definitely.
Drownings, accidents, everything happens because we just drop our guards. As though we lose our good senses. We become dysfunctional people. And we just surrender to what's presented in front of us, not realizing it's actually bad for us. And it could change our lives forever.
Okay.
And when you look back, and when you look back, you'll see how the silly season got you to where you finished off, into addiction.
No, 100%, Uncle B. It does. And then, now coming through recovery, fully being awakened to the reality of life, having my own kids, it for me personally, when the season comes, I become very agitated in that sense. You become more protective, because now I know what to look out for, not just in my own life, but I know I've got to look after for my kids as well. And it took me going through a whirlwind of lessons to learn that, when initially when you were taught that we didn't listen. You know, you're talking about this brother with the 5 rand story. I remember the day he came back and he shared the story, and we asked him, how do you feel now? He said, you know what, all that agony that I went walking that time, I never understood why I did it. But only when I had all of that money and I did what I did, that's when the realization hit me of exactly what was happening. So that plot was there for a long time. It wasn't something that happened immediately. It took him a whole year that wasn't dealt with, and the result in the end was a relapse.
That is why when you talk about plotting,
yes,
you can plot for a whole year.
Correct.
Outwardly, your family is happy with you. Inwardly, that is why we have the support groups.
Yes.
On a weekly basis, so that we monitor and see if there is a plot. We'll pick it up in the conversation, or we'll pick it up in the behavior.
Yes.
But that is your aftercare. If had he been regular with his aftercare program, where they would have been checking him on a week by week, that plot would have unfolded.
Yes.
But because of his time schedules and distant from the support group, there was no connection, or there wasn't a very good connection. But there was some type of connection. I don't think it was very regular, and that added to the problem, because he himself thought he'll do it once more.
Correct.
But it led to a major breakdown. So this so-called silly season, we don't know how many of our youth will be sitting in rehab centers next year, or how many homes will be broken by the time the season is over, or how many innocent lives will be lost through substance abuse.
Yeah.
We don't know. So what we are saying is that we need to be proactive.
Yes.
As individuals, we need to understand and how we're going to deal with these things, with these challenges, and maybe we'll go a little bit into that, for the next half an hour, as to how we can probably advise the youth on how to deal with these challenges, so that let the silly season pass incident free, inshallah. We stop for an ad break, inshallah, and we'll come back.
Radio Ansaar, Durban 90.4 FM, Peter Maritzburg 105.6 FM.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's good to be back. We're going to go back to very quickly. We don't have much time. We're going to go into our tips or advice to the youth or anybody out there that's planning some type of entertainment, in inverted commas, entertainment that is not good. Just for you to think, if you are planning, if you are out there sitting and planning, I want to go with my friends, and he's going to bring the party pack. The other guy will bring the other stuff and come, and we're going to have a good time. We have never taken it before. I'm going to try it out. Right? So this is for you. And all those that are there very excited, waiting to go into high school, this is for you. That you're going to meet friends, and you're going to go to big school, and you're going to try big things. And for you as well. And for those that have finished the matric, that want to go and meet up with their friends, and one last party together. And for those that are working and will be collecting the bonuses, this advice is for you as well.
100%.
Because you may do something this time of the year that may change your life forever. And that's what we don't want. So let's work on some of the tips that we can give you to keep you and everybody out there on the straight path, inshallah.
Before we start with the first step, we just want to bring something in as well. This is also the time where those that have tried drugs and have stayed away for it successfully for a few days or months, that they binge. And when they get into this binge, the cycle of a binge user is so dramatic, it's so serious that he can lose his life from that.
Exactly.
So when it comes to that, the very first thing or the very first step that I can think of is, and this is starting with my day early in the morning, is plan your day, plan your recovery, know your surroundings, know who you're going to be dealing with. You are getting bombarded at every point with temptations, with invitations for these kind of entertainment, this kind of drugs. Be aware of the situation that you're putting yourself in. Start each day with a plan, and the most important thing in your life right now is your sobriety. So skip all the non-essential things, all the things that you don't need to expose yourself to. Protect yourself from that. Remain cocooned over this period, and you'll find that you can enter the next year with hope, with love, and sober.
And you feel so wholesome, When you do the right thing, you get up feeling nice, bright and shiny, and you look forward to seeing the day. But when you start to do something wrong, or you plan something wrong, to do something wrong, you walk around this guilt and this misery. So that's good. At least you start your day, on a good note, not planning to do anything that's not right, and start with good intentions. Start your day on a good note, so that at least you know that you got up and you have a plan for the day, and you're going to follow it through.
Jane.
But remember, sometimes it's good to do, or at all times, it's good to do what you have to do, not what you want to do. Because what you want to do may not be good for you. You may want to go out with your friends, and maybe you want to go and have one more time, a party one more time. But it's not good for you.
No, 100%. The other thing is, the next thing that I can point out is that we all know, when you in your circle of friends, you know who's dabbling because each person speaks about it. Avoid those playmates. Stay away from them. Physically position yourself away from those sort of people, away from those areas, so that the temptation and the likeliness of you to being tempted towards drugs gets removed. So that's one of our main rules. Stay away from those playmates. So that's the second thing.
Get up in the morning, stay focused, and then stay away from bad company. People that are indulging, people that if you may have a doubt on.
Yes.
People that they're not the best of people, stay away from them. That's also a very, very good tip, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, I think that's also just being accountable and responsible. And we must take that into consideration from a young age, because our future depends on it. Especially now, we were talking about matrics. Matrics, now they want to experiment and have one last party. But right now, they're also choosing their careers, what they're going to study.
Yes.
So they are taking decisions for their future. So with regards to them as well, who say, I only do it in December or only do it in holidays, that's where it starts, right? You can even miss the whole year, I'll do it December. Miss the whole year, do it December. And eventually, you're doing it in January and February and March. And I think also for the parents, it's very important for them to have a close eye, to see that their kids, especially if they're in school, that they are doing things with the right people in the right places. I know there's a thing called the R.A.U.F, which recently just got cancelled. But
was it cancelled?
It was cancelled. There was apparently 42 people who had COVID, right? But last year there was a female who was raped, and they still had it. And previously, people who have overdosed, and so that is encouraging kids to go out and do these things, So, those things that if you're a parent and you have a child and he wants to go out, you obviously have to be aware of where he's going, with who he's going, and what he's doing.
I like what you said, being accountable. And that advice I'd like to give, like you said, to the parents as well as the youth. Because if you make your child accountable to you for those actions, for their actions, and you instill that as part of their upbringing, that is one of the ideal principles in terms of recovery. You are responsible for your own actions, and you will bear the consequences of those actions.
100%.
And each parent needs to instill the consequences in their child's life should they break those rules. So making your child accountable to you is the job of the parent, and they should enforce that.
Exactly. Parents need to take control of the children and bring them closer. Bring them closer so that they can watch them better. Because if the parent is failing in their responsibility, what does it leave the child with? His own mind and his own intentions. So he's got no guidance. It makes him very vulnerable. He walks into the wrong place at the wrong time, and then you got a problem. So I always say it starts from the parents.
Yes.
Bring your children closer. Keep them closer to you. Watch their friends. Watch who they're hanging out with. Watch what they're getting up to. Try and monitor their movements. Cell phones and that type of thing. See who they're talking to. And guide them. children appreciate, maybe initially they'll have a problem, they want to break out, they want the so-called freedom, but after this entire episode, or towards the end, or at some point, sooner or later, they'll appreciate. Children do appreciate good parenting.
No, 100%.
They do, because when you look back in life, I'm sure the two of you, when you look back, you'll appreciate the fact that your mother, your parents have been trying hard to keep you on the straight and narrow. And you'll only come to that point after you go and knock your head. So if you are a proactive person, then you're not going to wait for that to happen. And parents need to understand that they need to mean good and do good for their children. Because if that parent, if individually, as parents, if we don't take that responsibility of guiding our children, and of course, if you want your child to do the right thing, you obviously got to know what's right and wrong.
Yes.
You got to know, I've seen a write-up where the dad has taken his children from Johannesburg to Cape Town, and he goes and leaves them in the club. And he goes and fetches them, and he feels good about it.
Sure.
So these are the types of parenting we are experiencing. And we see it in our work, that parents actually don't see a problem with these things. So if you are not seeing that as a problem, and of course, when they start experimenting with dacha, and we find that the guy became slightly psychotic, and you tell the parent, no, we tested him, very positive dacha. Oh, it's not too bad. So if we don't know what's right and wrong, how are we going to teach our children what's right and wrong?
No. And the other thing is, Uncle, parents also need to realize that it's not a case that you don't trust your child. Having that monitoring doesn't mean you don't trust your child. Mm-hmm. It means you care enough to be involved in the child's life.
And the child will appreciate that.
Definitely.
They will definitely. Parents sometimes, we let them grow too quickly. We give them the so-called freedom prematurely. They have, I was just reading about Bill Gates. I was reading one of those articles where they talk about the way he raised his children. And they only got cell phones when they're 14 years old. There's strict controls in place. There's certain chores that they have to do at home every day. Now there's somebody who's got so much money, but he's doing all the right things.
Yeah, I guess everything is hard earned, in life. And like for the caregivers now, kids at the young age, they're resistant. They're resistant to their parents. I don't want to do this. Or why are you putting so much pressure on me? I don't want to go here. I want to be free. But like you said, they'll appreciate in the latter stages of their life, because, hey, you know what? If I ended up on the streets like this, I'm glad that my parent actually, had a relationship with me and enforced these good things onto me. So,
yeah. One of the other points to remember is to break your old patterns. And when I say break your old patterns, this is in relation to sometimes there's certain family functions you cannot avoid because you are part of that family. So instead of rather spending your time with the youngsters whom you know of previous use are using, rather spend your time doing something constructive, even if it means with your own close-knit family. So if you are at a braai, spend time actually helping prepare the food, setting the table, those kind of things.
You don't get into situations where you're hanging out on the corner.
100%. That's the point.
Shift your focus into something else that is more meaningful.
Correct. And that allows you to remain in a protective bubble rather than being influenced by other peers of your age and falling on the same trap. Braai functions at this time of the year is plentiful. There's always something to do, and there's always them happening. So if you're in early stages of recovery, if you can avoid it, all the better. Your family would understand that, listen, make your position as a recovery known. That, listen, I'm not comfortable in this particular situation, hence I would opt not to attend. But should you be forced that you need to attend, then protect yourself and have a protective bubble where your parent or your caregiver is close to you. They know your position and they will limit your interaction with those that can influence you.
Yeah. Talking about that, I was given the task to counsel a female that was raped in a family function. And they were all together, and then she had drifted away, and she got into a conversation with another youngster, and before you knew it, she was raped. And I was given the difficult task of counseling her. And it happened in a family function. So it is important what you're saying, that we need to keep them away from all these dangerous situations. And also the child needs to see the danger, and we need to prepare the children. Parents should be preparing the children, because this season is now upon us, and we don't know what's going to happen. Let's not do anything foolish as parents that we will be regretting later on in life.
Yeah, so also, you have to engage, talking about the silly season, you engage your support structure, so your support system, your parents, your caregivers, spouses. It's important to hang around with like-minded people, because if you go back into that same, same group or same, just keep your guard off, it's all a slip. So you have to change your whole ways, especially in this season.
Good. Alhamdulillah, we've got a WhatsApp where the person is saying that to stay from bad habits is to establish a bond with Salah, with Jamaat in the masjid. Make that your priority, and try and spend more time in the masjid. It will help you stay away from wrong company. Yes, that's very good advice. Alhamdulillah. But we as parents, we need to lead by example. As much as we want our children to do all the right things, we need to lead from the front.
Yes.
And of course, we need to make the masjid, or make our Islam, or the way we live our Islam, it must be palatable. It must not be ritualistic. It must not be felt as though it's a burden. It must be done in such a way that the child must be happy to go into the masjid. So it must be done with hikmah,
Yes.
And as parents, we must sometimes switch from top to bottom to side by side, sitting, talking, explaining, and very gentle persuasion, get them to join you, one salah with me, let's go for one salah.
Yeah.
And slowly you start to, because if you tell a youngster who's wayward, who's not focusing, and you tell him, ultimately we all want to be 5 salahs with Jamaat, but you tell a youngster that's in the wrong path, and you tell him that, he's not going to listen to you.
Now, as much as I agree with the listener, Uncle, we must also remember that there's a lot of monitoring that goes in with that as well from the parent side, because I know personally of people, or even recoveries, that have used those very excuses as their gateway to get out of the house, and they said they were going one place and ended up somewhere else.
I know quite a few actually.
We've heard many of these stories. So like the listener is saying, yes, it is important to establish all of these principles, but this needs to be guarded and monitored as well.
Monitored, and go with your child.
100%.
Because I know of cases, so many you all may have heard of, where they were getting deliveries of drugs in the masjid. And of cases where they were going out, to salah together and ended up drugging together. So... But the parent is thinking everything is going well. He's all the time with Jamaat, alhamdulillah. But even that needs to be supervised. So parents, it's good to go with your child to the masjid and read salah with your child, because you could be reading in the front. He's gone to the back. He's telling you he's gone to the toilet. Do you know how quick a delivery can get to you? With a cell phone, you can arrange a delivery. Meet me at the masjid. And I know of a case where this chap... We tested him and he was positive. The dad said, but he's with me all the time. And then we found out he was getting his delivery at the time of Jummah. He was going to the toilet, getting a delivery, and going and sitting there by his dad. So, these are the ideal things to do. But if we don't, that can also become an excuse. I also know of cases where they go out in the path of Allah and there's abuse taking place, because the supervision may not be what it was supposed to be. So, yes, that's what we all want. That's what we all want. We need to empower ourselves to know of the possibilities and the eventualities if we drop our guard.
100%.
So we need to keep a very close eye on them, and then only, because asking them to do it
is not enough.
Is not enough. But going with them,
Yes.
go with your child, go with him, let him be with you, sit with him in the masjid, that will benefit you, because he is now under good supervision and he's cultivating a relationship with Allah on the musalla, because now he's more focused. He knows there's an eye over him watching him, so he starts to focus. Now he's forced to focus and stay away from bad because dad is watching or somebody in their family is watching him.
But then this also brings me, just to divert slightly, to the point where when a family realizes, what the child may be experiencing with something like this, and they put him into madrasa, for instance, and expecting the institution was going to resolve the problem.
Famous.
Or basically, he goes in Jamaat, or he becomes close to the masjid. Without that, the point that I made, without that supervision, recovery doesn't happen like that. I mean, I myself am an example of that. I've been through madrasa, I've done hifz, and I ended up in the same place. So going through those institutions doesn't mean you're protected from it.
Yes.
And it's not going to solve the problem.
You're just going into another issue now. We've had children that have become delinquents in school, and the school would ask them to leave, or would expel them, or suspend them. And then they say, with condition that you take him and have him rehabilitated. So the parent will come to us, because the school would send them with a letter to us, where we would say, okay, he's got a problem, you need to attend the program, then let's start fixing up the problem. And then the mother will phone us after a few days and say, sorry, we're not coming to your program, because we put him into a Darul Ulum, and he's going to become a Hafiz or a Maulana. Alhamdulillah. But
Doesn't solve the problem.
what would he do when he goes? He's a delinquent. You don't know how to do. You pass the buck. As a parent, you pass the buck onto an institution. The first institution caught up with him, and they asked him to leave. And now you, as a parent, now you pass him on to somebody else. He goes there. There are other innocent children that are sitting there with all sincerity, trying to make a better life, trying to get closer to Allah. And he goes and contaminates all those children. So he goes into this institution and he messes other innocent children who don't even know how bad things are with taking drugs. So that parent then passes him over, and next thing you got a contamination.
Yes.
So parents, it's a common practice. So Darul Ulums also need to screen them
Yes.
more vigorous, in a more detailed way, proper screening, maybe even do tests to see that this child is, we, as much as our ulums are willing to take in and empower and educate and give knowledge, alhamdulillah, there has to be strict disciplines, intake policy, and there must be proper screening. There must be education on drugs, so that when they come there, you're fixing up those that may be suspicious, and at the same time, those that are not indulging, you're keeping them away from them. You're empowering them. So it has to be, we need to put more emphasis on our educational institutions that need to empower the youth as well. Because we're picking up a lot of, you're a Hafiz al-Quran.
Yeah.
How many Hafizes were you with you in our center?
Plenty.
And where did some of them started in the place where they were studying.
Right.
So we need to be very mindful of that.
Correct.
That putting them there. In other words, to put it in a nutshell, parents are shirking their responsibilities. Where that child was spending 18 or 16 or what, 16 hours a day with you and 8 hours a day in the ulum, you expect them to do your work. Parents need to fix the children up, help them, educate, because as much as you are getting rid of your problem, you are creating a problem in 10 other homes.
100%.
And you're only getting rid of the problem temporarily. It's not a permanent this thing. Because when he comes home, same thing is going to happen. Like Zain is saying that he was Lahafez, and only then after that he started his problem. So the problem doesn't go away. That you still have to empower yourself.
No.
There's a case that I know of. The son was doing hifz. He started messing around drugs. He was removed from there. Then he goes into another institution and he now wants to become an alim. So now he walks with a turban. He's done 2 or 3 years alim course. Now he's a so-called alhamdulillah. But then what happened? He's drugging. So now he gets removed from there. Now he's walking the streets. So Had that parent fixed that child up, it wouldn't have got to where it is.
100%.
Basically, they will come to you, they'll read beautiful surahs, and you'll get carried. Hey, this man reads so well. Only to find out he's conning you. So that becomes his enabling tool. Knowledge. He uses his knowledge to soften people up into giving him things.
Correct.
So he uses that to manipulate people. It becomes a manipulating tool. So it's a vicious, circle out there. If we don't understand, look at how the one thing leads where we started and where we're going. So let's go back to silly season. If the parent are not prepared to play the role, what do you expect the child to do?
Sure.
Let's go on the next point.
The next thing that I wanted to bring up is for a recovery or for anybody with addiction is knowing exactly what your triggers are. And this is a very important topic because parents also need to know what triggers their child in order to protect them. Access to cash is a very big, or is a major trigger. Leaving them open or to have complete access with no accountability to cash is one of the biggest reasons drug addiction starts, is the access to cash. So money, having them on their own with having no accountability of their time, nothing constructive, nothing evaluative, not monitored whatsoever. Those two principles put together is a recipe for disaster.
Today, we give our children all the materials, all the material things, all the materialistic things, but we don't give them our time, which is priceless. It's better to give them your time and cut all those material things, because it's like giving a fully loaded gun to a little child and saying, don't hurt yourself with it.
Yeah.
Giving a cell phone to a little child is like giving a fully loaded gun, because the nonsense that we see on social media, it can be used for good and for bad. And how disturbing it is to see that we are picking up all these different types of porn addiction and that type amongst youngsters.
Yes.
So, yes, the material thing that you give them is actually very, very dangerous if there's no controls.
You picked up on cell phone. Well, that was the next thing. Not having any accountability with regards to the usage of the cell phone, which you spoke of. And the other two things is extreme anger, extreme joy. Is another thing. When you allow them
excited, yes,
that overzealousness is also temperament. It forces
makes
them
you very vulnerable.
And then they look at that lifestyle of what they see on social media and they want to attain that. Extreme joy and extreme anger.
Yeah, and sadly, it's very sad that in a country like Saudi Arabia, they had a huge, concert or something, 400,000 people.
Sure.
In a Muslim country, to allow that, and you ask yourself, but where is this going? Now, our youngsters sitting out there, if they see this coming from a country like that, what would they think? It's acceptable.
Correct.
They have this Halloween thing, and the shops are selling all this Halloween regalia. They were busy, queues going in for kilometers to buy all these funny satanic, things.
Masks and memorabilia.
Masks and all that.
Yeah.
So, what is going on? We're losing the plot as an ummah. And it's just going to make as parents, our lives more and more difficult. So we as parents, we need to up our game. We need to come together. We need to take personal responsibility for your children. You need to bring them closer to you. Otherwise, we're walking into very troubled waters
100%.
and difficult times.
100%.
We've come to the end of the program. Inshallah, Zain.
Inshallah.
And then I'd like to thank you all. And we would continue with this discussion. It's a very good discussion. It's very appropriate. I think the timing is spot on. And I must thank you for the good research material which you have presented. Inshallah, Zain. Jazakallah to the both of you. Until next time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Radio Al Ansar podcasts.